Hello and welcome to the Capital Market Program on Channels Television. I'm Edidiong Iwang. At the primary level, a commodity exchange connects buyers and sellers of physical commodities, a role that is particularly useful in enhancing market efficiency by helping to match supply and demand of commodities across time and geographic distances. It contributes to unlocking finance to the commodity sector through price risk management, as well as by providing access to capital markets. Indeed, the need for Nigeria to have a functional commodity exchange capable of attracting investors into the agricultural value chain and enhancing jobs cannot be overemphasized. Currently, only 2 commodity exchanges are registered by the Securities Exchange Commission in Nigeria, and I'm being joined by the managing director of one of them, and that's the Nigerian Commodities Exchange, Mrs. Zahira Baba-Ari. Good evening, Mrs. Baba-Ari. Thank you for joining us on the program. Okay, if you can hear me, the Nigeria Commodity Exchange is the oldest commodity exchange in the country. Now, since its establishment in 2001, not much is known about the activities of the exchange. What is the mandate of Nigeria Commodity Exchange, and to what extent has it discharged this mandate?
Thank you very much. Actually, Nigeria Commodity Exchange was formerly Abuja Stock Exchange. And it was established in 1999. And in 2001, government converted it to a commodity exchange. And the Abuja Stock Exchange then was promoted by 5 government agencies, namely CBN, Nigerian Re, Nikon, NIDB trustees. So when government decided to convert the stock exchange to a commodity exchange, the promoters stopped funding us, and we were left in limbo. We were now made a parastatal under the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. And for about 3 years, there was no funding, and we were floundering. Later on, we got onto the Federation account in 2004, and then government began the Interministerial Committee on the conversion and the implementation to a commodity exchange. This took about 3-4 years, and at the end of the day, when that committee had rounded up, our government discovered that we had actually gone the wrong route because we were going after futures exchanges instead of spot exchanges. So we had to go back again to the drawing board and start all over again and get a commodity exchange abroad, which we would go to do internship at. Finally, we began operations in 2006. However, it failed, and it was bound to fail because the necessary infrastructure needed for a commodity exchange were non-existent. And what's as such infrastructure? First and foremost, warehouses. You cannot be a commodity exchange without having a warehouse or warehouses. There were no grades and standards. There were no cooperatives. There were no farmer groups. So all these things made us fail at that time. Later on, we started all over again, precisely in 2015, when a new management came on board, and government now gave us more attention. And we started getting warehouses from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. We were given some warehouses on lease, and the exchange has been able to put in place 21 warehouses, and we have put in place laboratories for testing of commodities. Now, what is our mandate? Our mandate is simple. It is linking the small-scale farmer to a formal market. And the only way to do this is through a commodity exchange. Remember that we had commodity boards in the 1980s, and these boards were abolished because there were a lot of infractions. The boards were paying the farmers a fraction of the cost of their commodities, and a lot of other corrupt practices crept in, and they were abolished. Now there was a vacuum, and government felt that a commodity exchange could fill that vacuum. Now, the difference between a commodity exchange and a commodity board is thus. A commodity exchange does everything that a commodity board does except that of price fixing. We allow for price discovery. So that is our mandate. Our mandate is to improve the livelihood of the rural farmer, to create employment, to increase productivity, and to ensure that government too generates revenue from agriculture.
Well, you've mentioned infrastructure as one of the challenges, but in what ways do you think Nigeria can unlock the potentials of the commodities ecosystem in the country?
Well, the way the Nigerian government can unlock that, because right now, the commodity eco space is very disorganized. It needs to be organized to make it formal. For example, right now, you have foreigners who go to the hinterlands and buy commodities at the farm gate from the farmers. This is wrong. It can't happen in any other country. So government should stop that. They should ring-fence the commodity ecosystem. In fact, as we speak, my staff just came back from Kogi State. You have these foreigners right now in some areas of Kogi State, and they are offering farmers money, asking them to come and take loans for the festive season, so that at harvest time, when they harvest their commodities, they will buy those commodities off the farmers at their own price, at the buyer's price, after subtracting the loans that I've given them. This is exploitation. So government should first and foremost ring-fence the commodity ecosystem. It is too disorganized. How can foreigners come in and start doing such things here? They don't do that elsewhere. Secondly, there must be some form of mandation, so that if you want to buy or sell commodities above a certain quantity, for example, like 5 tons, you must come through the floor of the exchange to do that. Again, government needs to come about with some incentives. For example, for the agro-processors, government can give them an excise duty rebate so that they can, trade on the exchange. If they get that rebate, the proviso will be that you must trade through the exchange. The exchange will have liquidity, and the agro-processors too will make some profit.
Well, you've mentioned the mandate of the exchange, but awareness is still low. In what ways is Nigeria Commodities Exchange working with the Securities and Exchange Commission and other commodities exchanges to advance knowledge sharing and awareness of the commodities market?
Actually, as far back as 2007, the exchange began what we called user education. We trained a number of people who eventually became commodity brokers. Now, at the initial stage, some of the facilitators were staff of the SEC. Until today, the SEC still avails that Commodity Brokers Association of its facilities when we want to do training. We have a 3-pronged training, and so far we have trained 600 commodity brokers, and we have about 116 broker dealers. Apart from that, we go into the hinterland to talk to farmers in their local languages. We do sensitization, we talk to them, we gather them, we tell them how an exchange works in simple terms. We make them realize that an exchange does not buy or sell commodities. What it does is to provide that platform, that organized trading platform for buyers and sellers to come, for there to be many buyers and many sellers. We explain to them that if you trade through the exchange, you will get realistic prices. There will be price discovery, and you'll no longer be cheated by the middleman in between. We tell them too that we are not there to remove jobs from the middlemen. What we are doing is simply redefining the roles of every other person. So that's what we have been doing. We have gone around many of the states in the country. We've spoken to them. It's part of our mandate to do that. It's part of our mandate too to educate users.
Well, you've spoken about incentives from the federal government to help the commodities ecosystem, but in what ways do you expect the National Assembly to support commodities trading in the country? I mean, what policies or what regulations are needed to be put in place for that? One
of the key policies that we have been propounding is the fact that there must be this policy on mandation. That is, if you want to sell any commercially viable commodity or a cash crop, you must do it through the floor of the exchange. That is, if it is in excess of 5 tons. That way, the farmer will gain, the government will gain, and the commodity exchange will begin to earn revenue. That is key. We have been talking about this, and initially when we started saying this, we were poo-pooed as if we didn't know what we were saying. But now, most people are buying into that, because that's the only way you can actually get the farmers to come. That's the only way the farmers can actually get genuine prices for their commodities. Another incentive would be that if you want to get a loan, an agric loan, you being a farmer, after you get that loan, you must trade your commodities through the floor of the exchange.
Well, what would you say has been the major contribution of the Nigeria Commodity Exchange to the Nigerian economy?
The major contribution, one, in physical terms, would be the warehouses that we have set up. 21 standard warehouses. Each of these warehouses have got laboratories. The reason for having laboratories is that before you trade on an exchange, your commodities must be assayed for its quality to determine its grades. So we have been able to do that. We have also been able to link farmers to buyers, through forward contracts and the like. So, and again, like I said, maybe I didn't tell you that, we launched a warehouse receipt system in 2014. It wasn't very successful then too, because we did not have warehouses. But now we have warehouses. Now, how does this warehouse receipt system work? How does it work? It works this way. If at harvest periods, when the commodities are plenty and the prices are low, the farmer does not have to be forced to go and sell his commodities. He can go and keep his commodities in an exchange-accredited warehouse. And that warehouse will issue him a receipt, which is a descriptive receipt. It tells you everything you need to know about the commodity, the quality, the grade, the packaging, where it comes from. And you can take that receipt to a bank and get loans from the bank, percentage of what you have in your warehouse. At the end of the day, when you pay back your loan, you will still have some change left, because it's assumed that those commodities you've kept in the warehouse have appreciated in price. So that's another thing that the Commodity Exchange has done.
Speaking about warehouse receipts now, do you have any idea of the current status of the warehouse receipts bill before the National Assembly?
Actually, the 8th National Assembly passed the warehouse receipt bill. It went to Mr. President. However, Mr. President declined assent to it. We don't know why. SEC is mulling the idea now of subsuming the warehouse receipt under the IST bill. But we don't know how far that will go. That is as far as it is. It was sent to the president. He declined assent.
Think the commodity exchanges fit into the federal government's plan of diversifying the economy through agriculture? Mr. Babari, if you can hear me, I was asking, in what ways do you think commodity exchanges fit into the federal government's plan to diversify the economy through agriculture?
The commodity exchange plays a pivotal role in the diversification of the economy, because it generates employment, it enriches and enhances the life of our rural farmers. It encourages productivity, because when you know that you have a market, you will go back to farm and plant things and harvest. Because what we have discovered, that the bane of the Nigerian farmer are 3 things. They need access to storage, they need access to finance, and then they need access to markets. And the exchange is able to fit into all those needs of them. because we have warehouses. As I said, at harvest periods when the prices are low, you come and deposit your commodities at the warehouse. You'll be able to use your commodities as collateral to get short-term loans. And then you'll be able to sell your commodities when prices have appreciated on the market.
Mrs. Babari,
so it
please
plays
hold.
a pivotal role in the diversification of the Nigerian economy, because it is touching the livelihoods of our farmers, who constitute 80% of our population.
All right, Ms. Babari, we'll need you to hold your thoughts on that note, and we'll continue this conversation with you when we return in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on the program. The Managing Director of the Nigerian Commodity Exchange, Zahira Babari, is still with us on the program. Mrs. Babari, thank you for staying with us on the show. Now, COVID-19 affected government, economies, and markets. In what ways did the pandemic affect the Commodities Exchange, and how were you able to cope with that?
Yes, for starters, there was a lockdown on movement. So farmers were denied fertilizers and inputs because there was no movement. And because of that, those inputs became very expensive, and it impacted negatively on their productivity. So there were very little crops to sell. We, on our part, in terms of coping with COVID and how we went about it, we were dealing with the farmers from afar, because our systems are electronic, so we didn't have to go near them, but we knew what was going on.
Well, the year 2020 is winding down. What plans does the Nigerian Commodities Exchange have for 2021? What is your outlook for the exchange for 2021?
In 2021, we are going to go into some form of backward integration in readiness for some orders that we've gotten, for example, from the World Food Programme. The World Food Programme is aware that we deal directly with the farmers, devoid of the many layers of middlemen that are there, and they are interested in that because they too want to impact on the lives of the farmers. So because of that, we are going to go into backward integration so that we can have enough commodities when the World Food Programme comes to buy from the farmers through our exchange.
Well, are there any innovations or products investors should be on the lookout for next year from the exchange?
Yes, we are going to start with our forward contracts. And that's another aspect of commodity trading. You know, in a commodity exchange, you can trade in three ways. You can be a spot exchange. You trade spot, that is immediate delivery. You buy and sell and get your money immediately. You have forward contracts, which are tailor-made contracts before you now move to futures trading. And then you have warehouse receipt trading too. So we are moving into forward contracts next year. That's one of the products we are going to release next year.
Well, the Securities and Exchange Commission is pushing for collaboration with the Standards Organization of Nigeria for the commodities trading ecosystem. Now, how will this partnership, be beneficial for the exchange?
Standardization is key with trading on the exchange. And as far back as 2012, 2013, the exchange there was a committee between the exchange, our ministry, and SON, because SON and NCX are under the same ministry. So a committee was set up to see how these grades and standards could be formulated. We discovered that SON had done a lot of work. They have standards for many of these commodities, but some of them were not graded. Eventually, at that time, 13 of them were graded. And we stopped there because the question then was, who was going to expose these grades and standards to the stakeholders? Because it entailed money. It stopped there. In 2018 again, the former Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Enelema, set up another inter-ministerial committee comprising the exchange, SON, the Ministry of Agric. And of course, SON had done much more. It has so many standards it has developed and grades. However, the only problem left now is for these grades to be exposed to the stakeholders. And the question still comes up, who is going to sponsor that? Because we'll have to put it in our budgets. Luckily for us, the SEC has entered and is talking to SON and is making a lot of efforts so that these commodity standards and grades will be exposed. Because remember, these grades and standards will have to be gazetted. And that means they will need to go to the National Assembly. But the SEC is doing a lot of work on that now.
Now, speaking about the Securities and Exchange Commission and standardization, in what ways has the Commission been helpful with boosting the commodities trading ecosystem in the country?
The SEC has done a lot in taking up the problems. They realize the problems that the commodity ecosystem has, and it is trying to address them one by one, and it has been quite successful. This year, there was a big conference where some important decisions were taken, and SEC is making sure that it implements each of those decisions.
Well, you mentioned trainings and, that you're doing with farmers and going from state to state. Could you tell us more about how these trainings work, and are there usually follow-ups from, the exchange with these farmers to see how, they're carrying on with what they had learned from the trainings?
Yes, there are follow-ups because we are working too with some extension workers. And these extension workers go back, teach these farmers good farming practices, and then we go up and find out. And then we are trying to encourage them. So we need to go back all the time. We are trying to encourage them to bring their commodities to the warehouse. And that has been a problem because it is very difficult to get a Nigerian farmer who wants immediate cash to bring his commodities to the warehouse to wait before he gets somebody to buy, and then for it to be assayed and things like that. They feel better off by getting little money at the farm gates. But we are talking to them, and now they realize, like for example, like I told you in Kogi State, the foreigners that are there right now who are trying to lure them by giving them money for the festive seasons, these cashew farmers have decided not to take that money. They are waiting for the next cashew season so that they can bring their commodities to our warehouse there in Egume so that we can begin to trade.
This is, a lot of times the commodities exchange is not really spoken about. So just before we go, and in 1 minute, could you just let us know some of the benefits, some of the other benefits that farmers stand to gain with, working with the commodity exchange? Mr. Babari, can you hear me? Well, I think we have lost Mrs. Babari there, but we'll thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program. Zaharia Babari is the Managing Director of the Nigerian Commodities Exchange. Well, that's it on the show tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Edidiong Iwang. Do remember to stay safe.